안개 속의
예수.
Welcome to Urban Legend. The first fight is pretty rough, as you can see, due to the lack of speed die, but this strategy I would use remains for practically all of Urban Legend. Because Roland's Tier 1 Abno card, Pulsation, stacks power a lot. So basically the way it works is, as you get hit you build up stacks of Pulsation, and then it'll divide that by, I think, 3, and you get 1 power, 1 endurance, and 1 haste. This allows you to basically persist through Axe, meaning you can basically get a permanent plus 3 power for the rest of the fight, which is incredibly helpful. It's how I absolutely swapped this fight. Of course, use the Streetlight office pages that I have, as well as Luda's friend, due to them having speed and burn application, which is good for his way. This fight goes practically the same, except now I have the much better SWI pages. Them having the additional speed die as well as retaliate, which is a very good page. The only problem is, once you're having more than 2 speed die, page economy starts becoming an issue. The issue I usually go is 2 light restore, 2 page draw, and then damaging pages. You saw me building my deck at the start of the fight. I have set fire on for extra damage. Anyways, yeah, that's really it. unlike the fights previously, Walter can actually do damage. And he is, I think, the first red passive we ever see. He has a lot of stagger and defense, meaning it's basically impossible to kill him, at least with his Y pages. Which is why we go to our old friends. The general office 6s have very good rupture pages, which is great for damage. This damage is very necessary, unlike this Y sustain, for one main reason. The abnormality page, wherever it beats, scales based on how much you can kill, allowing you to keep it up without your librarian dying. Meaning, using rupture, you can kill Y fixers to stack up duration, long enough to be able to kill Walter and then finish off the other enemies. In this fight, I'm using Ys to tank and Ashes to stack burn on the enemies. Also, later in the fight when I draw Footfalls boost up my main damaging page, boost up Assault as it applies burn. as I was talking about in the previous clip, now that I have pulsations, my goal is very simple. Roland just needs to kill or finish off every enemy. So I have to make sure not to do too much damage or too little to the allies. Since Roland has killed us, he now gets to live an extra turn, and I attempt to get my allies to stagger the enemy. So I really can finish them off and still stay alive for Walter. Because he effectively has +4 dice power up, allowing him to clash consistently with Walter. As well as, pretty sure, I don't know if he gets enhanced damage. Yeah, that's the end of me talking, I was for this fight. Urban Legend, I'd say, has an order. You always want to go, well, obviously his way, but then you want to go for Stray Dogs and then Olga. Because Olga is the Grim Reaper. She clashes incredibly high, and their decision, you just can't clash against their decision with most pages, and you're basically bound to be staggered. Because her Tremor Burst 2 damage, you're basically just done for. Anyways, this is my attempt at the Stray Dogs. Using pulsations to obviously stack power and Walter. So that way using mostly Blade Whirls instead of Retaliate, as it does more damage at the cost of losing an evade die. It's not necessary, as after drawing Fervent Beats, you basically take no stagger. So for some reason, in the next two clips, there's absolutely no audio. I'll probably have to edit the music for that. Anyways, that's the end of that. This next wave principal strategy is present in basically every fight. Where basically you always just want to kill the leader first. Because the leader usually always rolls the highest and does the most damage. But they also buff the subordinates, allowing them to roll higher and do more damage. So once they're out of the fight, the leader's out of the fight, the rest of the fight becomes far easier, compared to if you had killed all the subordinates beforehand. Also, because Babel is evil, Yumi has a passive move, so Brawl will always use Scratch That. And he only has Brawl and Scratch That. Meaning people just keep rolling like 12 and per turn, as well as having a passive that gives him basically blunt damage up for existing. of course, as the same for Yumi, you wanna kill Olga first. But now we have Yumi's rupture pages, which are incredibly good. You mostly just want to get lucky with Brawl and hope it picks Scratch that. But because of Yumi's passives, he can encrypt 2 Scratch stats, make the chances from getting it better. I got no idea why my audio comes back here.